Today's lesson is called Turkey's Hagia Sophia, From Past to Present. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff.
My name is Roger, and today we're going to continue talking about a famous tourist attraction in Turkey called Hagia Sophia. Yes, tourists go there, but now I guess it's being used by locals as a mosque because the current government has decided to turn it back into a mosque after it had been a museum since 1934. The first Turkish president back then decided to make Hagia Sophia into a museum in order to make Turkey a more secular society.
Ataturk was that president's name, and he thought, you know what, we need to have an open society. Let's make sure that government and religion don't mix too much, that one doesn't influence the other. Let's go ahead and make this country more secular. But yes, we're going to learn today that people have backtracked on this, okay? A recent decision we learned on day one has turned the museum that it once was, the Hagia Sophia, they're going to turn it back into a mosque, and this has caused some controversy. This has caused a stir, and we'll learn more about that today. But yes, the name of the game today is Hagia Sophia, From Past to Present. So let's continue our discussion of the history of the Hagia Sophia and get into some specifics about what's going on right now, how this church is being turned back into a mosque, or excuse me, how this once church and then once museum is being turned into a mosque once again. All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a short break, but don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
In early July, a Turkish court ruled that the building could not legally be classified as a museum. Shortly after, Turkey's president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, declared that Hagia Sophia would be turned back into a mosque. The first prayers were held in the mosque on July 24th. The president had long been contemplating this move, and many of his religious supporters backed the idea. However, the decision has been criticized by others.
大家好，第一部分我们看到单字 classify， 这个字是动词，指将点点点分类、归类。例如 Dr. Keller still needs to classify the plants that he found on his trip to Brazil.Keller 博士还需要为他在巴西之旅找到的植物做分类。另外，补充一个相关片语 classify A as B 就表示把 A 归类为 B。我们可以说 There is much call for cheerleading to be classified as a sport。有许多人呼吁将啦啦队列为一项运动。再来，我们看到动词 declare 指宣布、宣告，像是 The Prime Minister declared a national emergency because of the floods。因为洪水来袭，总理宣布全国进入紧急状态，或是 Oscar declared Polly to be the prettiest girl at the party. Oscar 声称 Polly 是派对上最漂亮的女孩。另外，补充这个字的名词 declaration, D-E-C-L-A-R-A-T-I-O-N, declaration 指宣言、声明。例如 The politician made a declaration that he was against raising taxes. 该政客发表声明说他反对提高税收。接着我们看到单字 contemplate， 这个字是动词，指盘算，之后接名词或动词 ing。例如 I want to take some time to contemplate the question before I give you an answer。 我想要花点时间思考一下这个问题再回答你。或是 Megan contemplated quitting her job when she didn't get promoted。 Megan 因为没有获得升迁而考虑辞掉工作。另外，除了上面的意思，这个字还可以指沉思。举例来说Tom contemplated the universe and mankind's place within it. Tom 仔细思索宇宙以及人类在宇宙中的位置。
Okay, so we're continuing to talk about the history of Hagia Sophia in Turkey there. So, yes, where we left off, it used to be a church, and then it became a museum up until recently. In early July of this year, a Turkish court ruled that the building could not legally be classified as a museum. So this is what the court said. You know, a court with a judge and a jury and a prosecuting attorney and a defense attorney, etc., etc. This court made this decision. It said said this building cannot legally be classified as a museum. In other words, it should not be a museum. If it is a museum, then that is against the law. It is illegal to be classified as a museum. And here we've got the word classify, which means to establish categories for something, to classify something as, in this particular case, is the sentence pattern. So you could say, this building is classified as an historical landmark.
So apparently it has to be a religious structure. You can't turn it into a secular structure like a museum, maybe. I'm not exactly sure why the court ruled in this way, but it has caused some controversy worldwide. It has definitely created a stir.
So shortly after that, not long after that, Turkey's president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, declared that Hagia Sophia would be turned back into a mosque. So that's what the president decided. He declared this. And when you declare something, that means you basically say something in a very serious way. And you basically don't take no for an answer. You say, this is what I've decided, and that's what I've decided, and I'm not going to change my mind. And if you don't like it, tough.
There you go. If you are traveling, maybe when you're going through customs, someone will ask you, do you have anything to declare? I.e., is there anything that you want to say about what you're carrying right now that you're bringing into this country? Okay, say it now. Say it publicly. Declare this thing. Yes, when you declare something, you say that thing publicly so that other people can hear you for the most part. You do this in an official way. Oscar Wilde, a famous writer, once said, I've got nothing to declare but my genius. I always thought that was very clever, and I do believe he said that when he was going through customs entering the United States.
That's quite a bold thing to say. But in any case, yes, this is what the president of Turkey declared. He said it will be turned back into a mosque. That's my decision. It's final. Don't try to change my mind. And the first prayers were held in the mosque on July 24th. So that's what happens when it turns into a religious structure. You got people going in there and praying, okay? So the first prayers took place, or they were held in the mosque in July. Now, the president had long been contemplating this move, and many of his religious supporters backed the idea. So, yes, indeed, as you know, Turkey is a majority Muslim country, so I'm sure a lot of people were saying, hey, why should that building be a museum? It's silly, it's dumb, it should be a mosque. After all, most of us here in Turkey are Muslims. It should be a mosque. So, of course, he wants people to be happy. He wants to be re-elected and stuff like that. So he had been thinking about this for a long time. Here we've got the word contemplate, which means you kind of think something over. You consider it, you take lots of things into consideration, and then later on you make a decision. So he had been mulling this over. He had been contemplating this for a long time.
Should I do this or shouldn't I? That's what Erdogan was thinking. Now, if I do this, this will happen probably. If I don't do this, this other thing will happen. Let me go ahead and weigh all of these possibilities before I make my final move. Yes, I'm going to need to contemplate all of these things before I make the move. But yes, he finally did make this particular move after thinking about it for a long time. And you know what? Many of his religious supporters backed the idea. They liked it. Good, the Hagia Sophia, it's a mosque once again. Why would we turn this beautiful structure meant for worship into a museum? Let's turn it back into a mosque. Yay! However, though, okay, there's a catch. The decision has been criticized by others, i.e., some people think that this was a bad decision. They don't like it, and they'll tell you about it. By the way, yes, if you criticize someone or something, you point out the flaws or faults in that particular thing, or the flaws or faults in what someone has done.
Yes, indeed. Like the United States government was criticized severely for its handling of COVID-19. They did a really bad job, so they were criticized for that. So yes, indeed, lots of people have criticized this decision. Hey, you shouldn't do that. It should still be a museum. If you change it into a mosque, there might be some trouble in the future. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's go on now and continue to talk about Hagia Sophia.
Many people saw the Hagia Sophia Museum as a symbol of peace and understanding between Christians and Muslims, and a reminder of Turkey's separation of religion and government. The decision to make it a mosque may cause division. Hagia Sophia's place as a UNESCO World Heritage Site may also be affected by the change. However, Turkey's president has said that all visitors are still welcome and entry will now be free. The Turkish government has also promised that the building's artwork will be preserved, though Christian icons will be covered during Islamic prayer.
第二部分我们看到名词 heritage 指遗产、传统，像是 Many French people are very proud of their country's heritage. 许多法国人非常以该国的文化遗产为荣，或是 Tyler has traced his heritage back to the Vikings of Denmark and Sweden. Tyler 的家族传统可以追溯至丹麦和瑞典的维京人。再来，我们看到单字 preserve 这个字是动词，指保护、保存、维护。例如 Our organization works to preserve the rainforest. 我们的组织致力于保护雨林，或是That house has been preserved just as it was a century ago. 那间房子保存得像100年前一样。最后，我们看到形容词 Islamic 指伊斯兰教的、伊斯兰国家的。举例来说 We visited several Islamic buildings while we were in Turkey. 我们在土耳其的时候参观几座伊斯兰建筑。
Okay, recall that in 1934, President Ataturk there in Turkey turned Hagia Sophia into a museum. Why? Because he wanted to make Turkey more secular. So when you go ahead and you turn the Hagia Sophia back into a mosque, does that mean that you're abandoning this secular idea for your government? Is that what's going on here, Roger?
Could be. I think you're just trying to please your voters. And in Turkey, of course, most of the voters are going to be Muslims. So, yeah, they probably will like this decision a lot. And he will easily get re-elected if that's what he's trying to do. And, of course, many people saw the Hagia Sophia Museum as a symbol of peace and understanding between Christians and Muslims, and a reminder of Turkey's separation of religion and government. Okay, so lots of people thought that it should have been kept as a museum because, hey, that helps peace between Christians and Muslims. Even though Turkey is a majority Muslim country, there are still lots of Christians there, so they need to get along still. So they thought, yes, this, as a museum, is a reminder that Turkey has this separation of religion and government. There should be a separation of church and state.
Yes, in a secular country, there should be a separation of religion and government there, okay? Now, the decision to make it a mosque may cause division. I imagine it'll cause division between Christians and Muslims.
Indeed. And here in the next sentence, it does say that Hagia Sophia's place as a UNESCO World Heritage Site may also be affected by the change. So yes, this is a very famous building in the world, and because of this, the United Nations gave it special recognition, or at least this particular part of the United Nations, UNESCO, which is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and they called it a World Heritage Site. Heritage just refers to something that reminds us of our past, and it helps our culture continue on into the future. In this particular case, just means it's a basically very wonderful place to go to, and it has a lot of history, and it means a lot to Turkey. And in any case, because of this change from being a museum to a mosque, UNESCO might come in and say, well, you know, if you do that, you cannot be a World Heritage Site anymore. That might happen.
There you go. Now let's move on. The next sentence says, however, though, Turkey's president has said that all visitors are still welcome and entry will now be free. So UNESCO is saying, wait a minute, we'll go ahead and call this a World Heritage Site, but you have to give access to everyone so that they can love this and experience it too. And here the president said, don't worry, okay? If you're a visitor, you can come visit. You can still visit. You're welcome to visit. And hey, on top of that, entry will now be free. How about that? And there's more. The Turkish government has also promised that the building's artwork will be preserved, though Christian icons will be covered during Islamic prayer. Yes, you can be a Muslim or you can be a follower of Islam. Okay, those two things mean the same thing, but Islamic here would be the adjective form of the word Islam there. So Islamic prayer by Muslims.
Indeed. Okay, so yes, lots of religious buildings in the world are free to go into, like Longshan Temple here in Taipei. It's not a museum, but there are still lots of things to check out there, and you can go in there as if it is a museum, and it doesn't have to be formally declared a museum for people to go visit. And of course, Turkey would be foolish not to let people go in there. They would lose all that tourist money. So yes, the artwork will be preserved. It will be protected for the future. And of course, you could always go see that at any time. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part. Let's move on now to the third part of our lesson. We'll listen first.
The identity of Hagia Sophia has changed yet again, and its newest one may take some getting used to. Still, the structure continues to hold a special place in many hearts.
I don't know how I feel about this, how the Hagia Sophia is being turned back into a mosque. Okay, I don't know what this means about politics in Turkey or the government in Turkey, but I am kind of happy here that they're going to preserve everything there. Okay, they're going to turn it into a mosque, but they're not going to destroy anything. They're going to keep it as it once was in all its magnificence. By the way, yes, if you do preserve something, you take care of that thing, okay? You make sure it stays in its original condition. It doesn't get damaged, so on and so forth. You maintain that thing.
You certainly do. So here in the third part, it says, the identity of Hagia Sophia has changed yet again, which basically says it's changed another time, and that's kind of surprising. And its newest one, the newest change, may take some getting used to. Most people are used to thinking of this place as a museum. Now they're going to say, no, it's not a museum. It's actually a mosque. It's going to take some getting used to, but still the structure continues to hold a special place in many hearts. Yeah, they're not tearing the building down. It's going to remain there. And as a tourist in the future, you can certainly go there and visit. You better not disturb the worshippers, though. That would be very disrespectful. But, you know, that goes without saying with any religious structure in the world. Lots of temples, lots of mosques, lots of synagogues are tourist sites, and tourists and visitors are free to go in and check it out as long as you don't disturb the worshippers.
Yep, don't disturb the worshippers. And hey, I don't think that people are going to stop visiting the Hagia Sophia just because it's a mosque now. People still hold this in high regard. They still love it. They still have a special place in their hearts for it. All right, folks, with that, today's lesson is now in the books, and it's time for you guys to hear from the Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分用到一个动词 preserve， 我们这边来学它的字首字根。好， S-E-R-V 这个字根它表示保存、服务、留意或是确保安全。像 service 它有服务效劳的意思嘛，那它就是由 S-E-R-V 再加上抽象名词字尾 I-C-E 而来的。好，那么在 preserve 这个字当中，它的字首 P-R-E 就表示预先，那么 S-E-R-V-E 表示确保安全，把它合在一起 preserve 就有保存、保护的意思。我们顺便补充几个有相同字根的单字。第一个是 deserve， 它的字首 D-E 表示完全，字根 serve 表示服务。那么 deserve 这个字呢，原本是指说因为服务周到、热心服务而被授予某一种权利，后来才衍生出这种应得、 值得的意思。第二个补充的是 observe， 它的字首 ob 表示在什么什么的上方，字根 serve 表示看管留意。好，如果有人在上方，他随时留意周遭动态，这样应该很容易联想到 observe 这个动词，它有观察、观测或是监视的意思。我们在 observe 后面加上名词字尾 ation， 就可以得到名词 observation 来表达观察、观测或是观察力。好，第三个补充的是 conserve， 它的字首 con 是做强调用，那么 serve 是表达保存。好，强调保存的重要性，这样应该很容易联想到 conserve 它有保存、保育、保护的意思。那么第四个补充的是 reserve，它的字首 re 表示往回、以前， serve 表示保存。那么把以前的东西把它保管、保存下来、储存下来，应该可以联想到 reserve 它有保存、保留的意思。好，那听到现在同学们有没有发现 conserve、reserve、preserve 这三个动词似乎都有保存的意思呢？我们来区分一下它们的差异哦。第一个 conserve，它可以用来表达使什么安全，免于伤害、摧毁。我们常常是用 conserve 来表达去保护自然资源啊，像是保护森林、保育野生动物，让自然环境免于遭受破坏等等。像 conserve natural resources 就是表达保护天然资源。另外 conserve 它也可以用来表达节约使用，像是节约能源、省水之类的。好，第二个是 preserve，它常常用来表达维持某事物它原本的样子，或是维持良好的状态，也可以表达使什么免于受损、伤害、摧毁。这时候它的意思就跟 conserve 差不多了。那我们常常是用 preserve 这个动词来表达维护历史建筑啊，保存某个文化传统等等。另外 preserve 也可以用来指维持、保持这个食物的新鲜，不让它腐烂。再来 reserve 当动词呢，它有保存、保留、预约的意思，常常用来表达说预先保留某事物，以便日后可以使用。也可以表达说去预定餐厅的位置啊，或是预订机票、预订房间等等的。好啦，那么以上是今天的重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Classify. All plants and animals are classified into different groups. Declare. Finding the man innocent, the judge declared the court case over. Contemplate. The government contemplated raising taxes, even though it would not be a popular move. Criticize. The protesters were criticized for causing damage to businesses. Preserve. It is important to preserve historical buildings for future generations.
Discussion Starter starts now!
It's time now for our discussion starter, and here is the question. Do you think it was right for President Erdogan to turn Hagia Sophia back into a mosque?
Well, Erdogan had the right to do so, as he's the president and he had the support. Now, do I feel like this was the right move? Maybe it's an okay move, but if it does signal that secular government in Turkey is finished, I don't like that one bit. So if he's doing this for the right reasons, awesome, great. If not, I'm a little bit worried.
Well, as a museum, it was a really great place, and you didn't have to worry about there being any controversy. So I think that turning it back into a mosque is going to cause trouble. Anytime you have religion kind of influencing the decisions of a country, you're asking for trouble.
Okay, everyone. With that, today's article is now complete. But, as always, we sure hope that you guys have enjoyed reading along with us. Anyways, I'm Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.